Everyone, I'm Shayanti, the artist behind Shayanti Fine Arts. As you know, I'm working on a series of paintings of Disney characters reimagined, especially the Disney princesses, and this is the third of that series of painting. I'm presenting today Merida, and Merida is one of my favorite characters from Disney movies, Merida from Brave. Especially because, see, she's not the typical damsel in distress and a woman, a girl who can stand up for herself. So this is especially important for me. And today's tutorial will be is an oil painting tutorial. Although I started off with acrylics because I wasn't sure whether to go with acrylics or with oils. Anyways, this is an oil painting, and let's check out how I did it. And in case you haven't checked out the previous two, I'll link those in the video description, and I'll have cards pop up as well. Thank you.
First, I toned my entire canvas with raw umber paint, and you can do a light wash, you can do a dark wash, it's up to you. Then I sketched out my drawing on a piece of different sheet of paper, and I did the sketch on a kind of like very thin tracing paper kind of paper, so it's easy to transfer over, so that it's a thin paper. And then I took my graphite transfer paper and transferred the drawing over to the canvas surface. And when you are doing so, always make sure that you are getting enough of the drawing, enough of the lines on the surface of the drawing painting surface. Otherwise, like me, you would have to draw them back a little bit with your graphite pencil, which is not a big deal, but yeah, it's good to check. Next, what I did is I did a quick underpainting with a purple color. I could have done it with raw umber or burnt sienna or burnt umber or any of those colors. Those are generally colors of choice for underpainting, but I generally like to do underpaintings in purple because you tend to use a lot of purples in my paintings. If you have ever watched me doing any of my paintings before, wherever there is a shadow, instead of blues, I use purples a lot, and I think purple goes very well with the other colors with undertones. It goes with the red and brown range, it goes with the blue range, so purple is very chosen color of mine, so that's why I did the underpainting with purple. At this point, I was thinking I'm going to do the entire painting in acrylic or do an all over acrylic, and that's why the underpainting was done in acrylic. Then I started with the background, and at this portion also I am doing the background with acrylics only, starting off with acrylics only. And I'm mixing a few tones of blue, cobalt blue and phthalo blue with a little bit of aqua green blue color and a lot of white, and putting them, just like blotching them over in the background. And then I'm going to take my spraying bottle and spray a little bit of water on top of it, and then go back with a piece of crumpled plastic and make some dabs on that, and that kind of gives a nice interesting texture. But then while I was doing that, I realized that I can easily do this in oil painting, and when it comes to painting portraits and figurative studies, oil paints are one of my favorite choices. I tend to like them a lot better than acrylic paints, just because they give me a lot more time to blend in, and that's generally a very big advantage. So I switched over to my oil paints at this point, and I used the same colors of phthalo blue, turquoise from my Gamlin set, and white, a lot of white, and another different kind of blue. I think there's some amount of ultramarine blue and phthalo blue mixed together, and the turquoise, and did go over on the background. Then I started with the most important part of the portrait, the eyes. And the character of Merida has such big blue beautiful eyes, and it would only do justice if I did the eyes properly. So I did the under the eyelid portion of the eye with purple, and then the outside circle with phthalo blue, and then filled the inner bottom half with turquoise, and then went over the bottom side of that with a little bit of white to give it a little bit of lighter color. Then onto every other area of the face, what I'm doing is I am first painting out the darker areas sometimes with my purple, depending on where it is, and what color I'm seeing on the different reference photos that I'm using. And depending on that, I'm putting in the darker areas first. So for the dark areas, I'm using combination of raw umber and purple. Sometimes I'm mixing them, sometimes I'm using them raw. And then for the general area of the face, the lighter midtones, I am mixing different proportion of flesh tint. Now I have this flesh tint color in my set of oil colors, because I do a lot of oil paintings. I've over the year collected different shades of paints. But if you do not have the flesh tint, all you have to do is mix any sort of yellow and one red and a tiny bit of ultramarine blue, and then whiten it out, add a lot of white to it, and that will give you this flesh colored look. And depending on how much warm or white skin tone you want, you can vary the amount of reds and yellow and blue, and that will give you several shades of the flesh tone. So you can use them for a wide range of midtones. So that's how I did my midtones, and then I did layout of the lips and all that. Once that part was done, I moved over to the hair, and at this point I'm just doing the shadows with the dark purple and the lighter areas with the raw umber, but I have to make a very bright orange hair, which will be a bigger challenge, but not right now. So moving on to the hand. Once again, I'm putting in the darker areas first, the darker lines first, and that I'm doing with using my raw umber and my purple mixed, and also a little bit of blue here and there, and I'm sometimes using them as the color, as a raw color of, or sometimes I'm using mixing various proportions on them. And then for the mid-tone areas, I'm mixing in different amounts of flesh tones to create the lighter and darker areas. At this time, I'm not worrying about blending, because this is a specialty of oil paints that it does not dry very fast. So once I lay in all the colors and I'm happy with the layout of the colors, the mapping of the colors, then I can go back and blend in the colors and make a much smoother look. And anyways, in my figurative paintings, portrait paintings, I generally do at least 2 or 3 layers of paint. So even if this initial layer is not smooth, it does not matter, because I'm going to go over it with lots of layers of paint. Now, going over with lots of layer of paint, which is called glazing, is a favorite technique of mine. Although it is mostly used for color correction and perfecting the hues and getting a lot of layers, so that each layer of paint refracts light in a different manner and gives a lot of depth to the painting. But an additional benefit of doing glazing is that it keeps on smoothing your painting with each additional layer. So your skin gets smoother, your texture of the canvas gets lighter. However, if you do not prefer texture of the canvas, you can use some gesso and sand it down and start off with a smoother layer that will reduce the number of layers that you require. But at the same time, it does to the depth of the painting, the glazing, what the glazing does to the depth of the painting and the color correction and the hues, that cannot just be achieved by gesso. So I think some amount of glazing was required. At least my painting style requires a lot of glazing. So once I did the hands, I moved on to the clothing, and initially it was just blocking in with dark phthalo blue mixed in with whites and turquoise. Now the phthalo blue that I have is a Winsor & Newton series of paint, and the turquoise that I have is Gamlin. So I have a mix and match of different brands of oil paints, and all the materials that I've used for this painting is listed below in the video description, so you can check that out if you have any questions regarding the materials, colors that I've used. But I do not generally mention the colors. I only mention it when I am talking about in the tutorial. And this is a pretty long tutorial, so I get to talk a lot about my process. Yes, this is going to be a lengthy tutorial, so if you do not like the lengthy ones, I am sorry, but people generally have a lot of questions even after I do my tutorial, so I thought I'd do a lengthy ones and see if that helps people answering more questions in the video process itself. If you do not like the longer versions of tutorial, feel free to let me know, because I always try to cater most to the requirements, and I try to do some shorter videos, some longer videos, so that everybody has what they want. And also you can use the feature in the settings to change the fastness of your video play, or rather that's just definitely not the right terminology for that. You can just change the speed of the video. You can slow it down a couple of times, and you can even make it fast a couple of times. So just according to your requirements, slow it down or make it fast. So onto the hair. This probably is the most tricky part of the painting. Merida's her character is essentially important part of her look is her hair. Such bright orange hair. It was very difficult to get, but I'll get onto that later. Now onto the background. I'm adding another layer, and I'm making a few suggestions of the tree trunks here and there, but not putting in a lot of details over there, because I want the focus to stay in the foreground in the figure. And since the background color is already pretty saturated, the phthalo blue and turquoise and white, all of them have a good amount of saturation, and they are attractive colors, so they are anyways attracting a lot of attention. So I'm not going to put a lot of details in the trees and the herbs and shrubs, all that matter, to make it even more prominent. But this color was important because this is kind of the color theme that Merida, the movie, had going on as a background in the forest and all. So I just wanted to stay true to that feel. Onto the bows, onto the side of the bow that I think is where the that I decided that this is where the light is coming from, I added the lighter color. And you can see that once I adjusted the light to dark and kind of made rounded brush strokes to give that round feeling, I added a few finer details to do a little bit of decoration on a bow too. And that was a very fun part, because I do not do a lot of ornamentation generally, apart from a few paintings, and when I do it occasionally, I enjoy doing that. And I thought that that was important, kind of a part of the character. Every detail is very important in this Disney character, because every frill of the dress, colors, backgrounds, these are hair color, eye color, these are the important part of these Disney characters, these Disney princesses, that make them identifiable, and I wanted to keep those characters. Now I'm back onto the hand. I'm doing my second layer of paint, and you can see that as I'm applying my second layer of paint, some areas it is pretty translucent, some areas it is pretty opaque, but as I'm adding the second layer, it's automatically everything is getting so much better adjusted. The tones are smoothing out, the darks and lights are adjusting better. It's not looking so harsh, it's smoothing out, and that's what glazing exactly does. It's not for the smoothing out, it's just for the color correction, adjusting the color temperatures, and just the different layers. They add in so much depth to your painting that it is worth doing that. And that's why I think the old masters relied so much on glazing, and that's what gave that ethereal quality, ethereal look to their paintings. Not that I'm claiming that I'm anyways close to any of the old masters, but I'm just saying that this was probably why they liked this method of painting. And I like that a lot too. And in fact, I think one of these days I'm going to do a painting that I'll take a month and do it at my leisure and do it at my own speed and have fun with it. Adding a little bit of details here now onto the tufts of the arrow. And I'm first doing it with a darker brown tone mix and then coming over with lots of white highlights to make it prominent. So it covered a lot of the right hand of this portrait, and that's why I did not pay as much attention to the right palm as much as I did to the left one. I'm adjusting a lot of details of the folds of the clothes or garment of Merida, although it's at the very background. But I think these little details, like I was talking just a little while ago, is very important for any character, especially if you're trying to reimagine those characters in real life. These are the little elements that make them identifiable, distinguishable, that you know, okay, I know this character, this is Merida. This doesn't exactly look like Merida, but this is how she would look like if she was a person. That's what the look I'm going for. And I think on this one I pretty much did a good job, but I'll let you be the judge, obviously, and you let me know whether I ended up doing a good job on Merida or not. Let me know in the comments. That would mean the whole world to me. If you want any further information on the painting, also let me know in the comments. I try to answer any of the questions that you put forward in the comments, so that was a great way to interact with me. Now still keeping on adjusting the lights and darks and the folds of clothes. Now if you go and look into the animation character, generally animations do not do a lot of folds of clothes. Those are more of a reality thing. Illustrations are most like a true tone, one layer tone, just darker areas will have shadows, lighter areas will have lighter colors, and that's what it is. But since I'm going for a real life Merida, so I had to pay a lot of attention to all those details and all that. Doing the little frills of her dress, adding in the darks first and then coming back with the lighter colors and adjusting them. And once again, like I'm reiterating that these little things, parts of the dress, this little fold, this little frill in her arm and the outfit, these are the identifiable characters. So I put special attention and quite a bit of time to perfect, or rather try to perfect, these details to make the character more distinguishable, more identifiable. Especially if you like the character, you like the way it is, you don't want it to be adulterated. So that was my attempt. Going back to the eyes, I did the eyes probably 3 different times to get the colors and hues perfected, to get enough depth, create enough lights and shadows to make it more realistic, yet add the right lights and darks properly and do a lot of adjustments. So yes, the skin I did 2 times. No, I think I did like 2 times and a little bit on the 3rd day. But the eyes I did all the 3 times I did the skin, and 1 more time too. And considering that I did an underpainting too, so that probably is a 5-time job on the eyes and a 4-time job on the rest of the face. So to the details, I'm just cleaning up the edges and adding 1 layer of paint, correcting the hues, correcting the values, lights and darks, readjusting the alignment and making the colors a little bit more brighter, lighter, adding in highlights wherever required, putting in lots more shadows and then redefining and adjusting them, making them look more realistic. Not any lines should stand out. Like in the cheek, you can see that I added a lot of red, because cheeks, nose, these are the portions of the face that has a lot of blood capillaries going on, and they are much redder than the other areas of the face. So I added a lot of red, and then I went over it with other skin tone colors, browns and the flesh tones, and adjusted it to look as close to reality as possible. And whether I did a good job on the skin, well, you'll be the judge on that. But I was pretty satisfied with this painting in the end. So if you like it, then I'll think that my job was well done. So let me know. That would mean a lot to me. So on the lips, I went with the animation look and added quite a bit of color, like her lips were painted, but I personally feel that her lips probably should not be painted this amount of red or magenta, but I just went with the animation look of her, color of her face and lips, and did just the same. On to the hair, the most challenging part of the painting. It is very difficult to get such a bright orange by mixing yellows and reds. Yes, I accept it. I do not have an orange in my portfolio because I have never really used so much of oranges. And generally, whatever I get by mixing a cad yellow and cad red, it's pretty nice and decent. But in this particular painting, this orange hair was a very important part of the painting. This is kind of what the essence of the character is. So I had to work a little bit harder to get the shadows, lights and darks correctly, and a lot of highlights too with lighter color to get it all adjusted. So perfecting the hair was probably the last area, the last challenge of this painting, and then cleaning up a little bit of details. That is all there is to this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you were not too unhappy about the tutorial being so long. Let me know what your thoughts are about a longer tutorial versus a shorter tutorial. That would be helpful to decide which direction I want to go in my future tutorials. Thank you for staying along and paying attention, and thank you for everything. Do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I will see you soon. Thanks once again.